Just 7 days after announcing he was leaving WWE after the company had released him, choosing not to extend his WWE contract, Ron Killings, better known as R-Truth, is now back in WWE, making his shocking return to the company by interfering in the main event of Money in the Bank and costing Logan Paul and John Cena their match against World Heavyweight Champion Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. It's now being reported that not only has Killings re-signed with the company, but also we're expected to see a more serious side of R-Truth in what could be his final run in World Wrestling Entertainment. With that said, who are going to be upcoming opponents for the former R-Truth in WWE? We'll let you know in this countdown video. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. And before we begin today's countdown video discussing Ron Killings' opponents now moving forward in WWE, first, be sure to subscribe. You can see the number right there. We're at 22,314 subscribers, getting closer to our goal of 25,000 for 2025. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Enjoy the ever-expanding WNU, that being the Wrestling News universe. In addition, you can become a member of the WN 365 roster. Links in the video description below. You can click the join button or you can scan the QR code when it appears on the sidebar here. Right there, you get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content. So, let's get into today's countdown video and discuss Ron R-Truth Killings' return to WWE. No, it wasn't a work. R-Truth legitimately was told by not even senior, high brass, top brass people in WWE that they were not going to renew his contract. And he made that announcement on the 1st of June. He went to social media revealing that he was departing the company after 17 years in his most recent run. Overall, it was close to 2 decades in both of his runs with the company. And it sparked outrage. It sparked furiosity with the talent, with fans, with people within the company. Everyone was unhappy. And according to other reports, R-Truth actually rejected and didn't respond to WWE reaching out to him several times until the president himself of the company, Nick Khan, actually reached out personally to Ron Killings just to express how important it was that he came back to the company. And then a deal was done 72 hours prior, or over the 72 hours prior, to Money in the Bank. Now, there have been a lot of rumors about what this actually means for R-Truth moving forward. Well, first of all, as you can see there, he's not being called R-Truth anymore. He's being called Ron Killings. Now, if you're a fan of TNA Wrestling back in the day, you will remember him as Ron the Truth Killings, a former 2-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. It has been reported that not only is WWE having him be called Ron Killings, a request by R-Truth in this new run with the company, but in addition, we're not going to see the comedic R-Truth that we've seen for so long in WWE. No more Little Jimmy, no more John Cena was my childhood hero, no more Ron Cena or anything like that we recently saw at Saturday night's main event. We're going to see a more serious side of a WWE superstar in his 50s, maybe looking for one final run with the company. That leads to the question, who is he going to be facing off against? Well, let's get into 5 potential names that could be set to face off against the former United States champion, beginning with, of course, John Cena, the man he cost at Money in the Bank. Of course, Ron Killings made a shocking return. Who was the first person he attacked? It was John Cena. Now, ever since John Cena turned heel, we've seen this R-Truth comedic character kind of basically explain away, well, there's 2 sides to every story, and no, John wouldn't do that, my hero wouldn't do that, I've got to beat the hustle, loyalty, and respect back into him. And it's amazing how this whole thing has transpired. Of course, it's been this running joke on WWE television for years, a bit of an inside joke as well with R-Truth, because he's this comedic goofball character that has a bit of a screw loose, and he's not all there, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, whatever metaphor you want to use. He would always say, John Cena was my childhood hero, even though he's many years older than John Cena. So it didn't make a lot of sense, but R-Truth, the comedic character, doesn't make a lot of sense, and he's often very confused, whether it's entering the Royal Rumble and thinking he's in the Money in the Bank ladder match, whether it's thinking he's in a Money in the Bank ladder match to find out he wasn't even booked for the pay-per-view or anything like that, right? That's what R-Truth does. Or thinking he's part of the Judgment Day when he's not even a member, and entering to their music, entering the Women's Royal Rumble because he's got their actual match wrong, and he enters on later in the evening. He's confused, and that's why he was confused for John Cena being his childhood idol. And people always felt with John Cena and having this retirement tour and specific dates, we were always eventually going to get a John Cena versus R-Truth match. But how far can you really go with that? R-Truth's a comedic character. There's no real legs in that. Are you really going to sell that much tickets? So what they did is Cena needed a TV main event match. and because they wanted to spike a good rating for Saturday night's main event. It was on network television on NBC, and also they want to get people to watch it on Peacock, and also it would set up a match for Money in the Bank because Cody Rhodes would come back, and it would lead into the Logan Paul, Jey Uso involvement too. So really, it was just a little TV feud for Cena to have something to do, make some appearances on TV. So they had Cena after Backlash, when R-Truth got involved in the finish of that one against Randy Orton, put him through a table. Right, we're going to have a match at Saturday night's main event. And people thought, are we going to see a more serious side of R-Truth moving forward in maybe one of his last big hurrahs anyway? And we didn't really. We saw glimpses and flashes, but he was still playing the goofball. It was Ron Cena. His final entrance before he was released by WWE, or at the very least told his contract wasn't expiring, he did a John Cena entrance. He had a John Cena t-shirt on. He came out to John Cena's music, and the match itself didn't last very long because it didn't really matter. It wasn't WWE's focus. Now that Ron Killings has got a new contract, and WWE have really listened to the fans. They said, we want truth. They've given us truth. Now we're going to be getting Ron Killings versus John Cena. Now, when we're going to get this, who knows? Is it going to be as soon as Night of Champions taking place in Saudi? Maybe that's the time that they're going to do it. I don't think it's going to happen at SummerSlam. Is Ron Killings going to win the upcoming King of the Ring tournament? And is he going to compete for the undisputed WWE Championship at SummerSlam? We don't know. We really don't know. And it certainly was never the plan for Ron Killings to get this popular and end up in a championship feud with John Cena. But that's the way things have gone. That's the flexibility of giving the fans what they want. So it's inevitable that one of, if not Ron Killings' biggest opponent in this last run with WWE. Don't know how long his new contract is for, of course, but in this run, his biggest match is going to be against, once again, John Cena. The same it was back in 2011 when Ron Killings and then R-Truth turned heel and challenged for the WWE Championship at Capital Punishment. It's interesting how these things work in pro wrestling, isn't it? Now, what about The Miz? Of course, The Miz, you feel like The Miz, of course, turned heel on R-Truth back in 2024 when he kind of aligned with the Final Testament and he was involved with the whole Wyatt Six stuff. And really, since then, The Miz has still kind of floundered. There were even reports or suggestions, wasn't there, when R-Truth was informed that his contract wasn't going to be renewed by WWE, that maybe The Miz was going to be next because veteran WWE talents were being let go. Carlito was another name whose contract wasn't extended by WWE, and people thought, oh, they're getting rid of people on the roster who have tenure. And the two people with some of the most tenure, particularly on the male side of things, on the WWE roster, are R-Truth and The Miz. The Miz has been with WWE at this point since 2004, since Tough Enough. Yeah, he's been with the company a long time, over 20 years with the organization. He's right up there with people that have tenure and still an active main roster superstar appearing every single week on WWE television. In fact, The Miz put out a very widely shared post on social media when R-Truth made the announcement that he was going to be let go by WWE, saying about how great of a guy he was, etc., etc. And maybe there could be some kind of storyline that they could do here where jealousy once again rears its head and The Miz says, look, this guy got let go. He's in his 50s. He's done nothing in his career, and he gets put into championship situations. He gets put into significant matches against the likes of John Cena and gets given a new contract. When I've been here the whole time, he has, and people just forget about me, but actually they pay attention to R-Truth. That isn't fair. And maybe that does lead to a match at some point because, of course, look, these two guys have got a lot of history with each other, not just as the Awesome Truth recent World Tag Team Champions that won it at WrestleMania 40, but even prior to the original tag team of the Awesome Truth teaming up in the main event of Survivor Series against The Rock and John Cena back in 2011. You know, there's a huge amount of history there, so maybe it does lead to one final match between the two former tag team partners. What about Randy Orton? Of course, now that Ron Killings is playing a more serious role, certainly opponents are going to be opening up for him, and it depends just how strong, I suppose, WWE intends to book Ron Killings moving forward. The reason he's no longer called R-Truth seemingly is at the request of Killings, who wants to use that name on television to get it to some exposure, so when he does finish up with wrestling, his music, name's got a greater reach. In addition to that, he can do more outside projects. But as I said, it depends really what WWE's plans are. If he's not going to be a comedic gimmick, and they actually are going to give him a legitimate main event or top tier talent run, i.e. facing someone like John Cena in his retirement year for the undisputed WWE Championship, then really Ron Killings should be facing other top talent within WWE. And I talk about talent with tenure. This whole story really around R-Truth getting released or letting his contract expire from WWE. The real outrage was about tenure. That's not how you treat somebody with tenure. That's not how you treat someone who's been with WWE for close to 2 decades. And there's only a few talents who have been in WWE longer than R-Truth. There's only a few talent that have got more tenure than R-Truth. Now, of course, R-Truth, this is actually in his second, do we call it now technically third run with the company? I'm not really sure if it's his second or third, but his initial run with WWE came right in the early 2000s when he was on Raw, teaming with the Road Dogg. He was K-Quick. He wasn't even Ron the Truth Killings. He wasn't R-Truth or anything by that point. And at that point in time, I think Randy Orton may have been signed to WWE. He was in developmental, certainly not on the main roster because he debuted on the main roster in 2002. But when you talk about people that have got tenure in WWE and you talk about people that have got respect in WWE, the Viper's right up there with your likes of your John Cena's, with your likes of the Miz's, with your likes of R-Truth as active in-ring talent that have been there for a long, long time. So maybe there's a situation where 2 of the biggest veterans on the roster, 2 of the biggest veterans and people that have tenure face off. Maybe for a situation whereby, once again, Randy Orton feels like there wasn't an outcry for him when he was gone for 18 months. Because you remember, Randy Orton was gone for 18 months with having spinal fusion surgery in his lower back. He wasn't sure if he could come back. He came back, but it wasn't this immediate U-turn. Oh, he's going to come back. Maybe R-Truth can be frustrated and say, hey, this guy was on the shelf for the longest time. He had tenure, but you brought him back. So bring Randy Orton back. Whereas me, you just saddle me with a goofy comedic gimmick. But I'm not R-Truth anymore. I'm Ron Killings. This is the real man. This is the real person. And the real person has always been better than Randy Orton, and I'll prove you why. Something a bit like that. That's not impossible too. So depending on how WWE are going to book Killings moving forward, if they're going to treat him for a short amount of time as a main event guy, then he's got to face off against main event guys. And you don't get bigger main event guys on the roster. There's very few bigger than the Apex Predator himself, Randy Orton. AJ Styles. Speaking of people with tenure, now AJ Styles doesn't have the tenure that R-Truth has, but he certainly does have the respect. AJ Styles, one of the greatest pro wrestlers of his generation, and we know when it comes to the Phenomenal One, his time is getting shorter and shorter with WWE. There have been rumors he could possibly leave this year. There have been rumors that his contract could be up this year, and AJ himself has stated that he's not going to wrestle past 50, which would mean he's only got a couple of years left. Now, when it comes to AJ Styles and Ron Killings, one thing they have in common: TNA Wrestling and the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Both won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship when it was NWA TNA, and when the NWA World Heavyweight Championship was the top title in TNA Wrestling. And certainly you feel like before both men decide to hang it up, with this being probably R-Truth's last run in the company and not even being R-Truth anymore, being Ron Killings. And with AJ Styles, you feel like this is probably his last run in the company as well. And having these matches against talent before, and maybe one more in TNA Wrestling before he decides to hang it up. You feel like, again, 2 veterans facing off against each other that have got shared history. They were both in TNA in its early years, in its inception, having those matches at the Asylum for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Like there's just a lot there. There's a lot of history there, and it's 2 guys that have got immense respect for each other. Now, I don't know whether or not this match would happen in a WWE ring, or they would decide to have this match in a TNA Wrestling ring. Of course, anything's possible now, considering that WWE's got that working relationship with TNA Wrestling, and the scope to always get bigger and always get better. And who's to say that you don't have a situation where an AJ Styles and Ron Killings decide to have their final TNA Wrestling match against each other, as opposed to a match in WWE? That's entirely possible. So given that, AJ Styles versus Ron Killings, I don't know what that would look like stylistically, no pun intended, in 2025 in terms of match quality, if that would be up to par in 2025. But certainly from a story point of view, there'd be a lot of meat on the bone there. And finally, what about the American Nightmare himself, Cody Rhodes? Now, you would say, oh, and this one doesn't make a lot of sense because Cody Rhodes actually won the match. Yes, Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes won the match thanks to Ron Killings' interference against John Cena and Logan Paul at Money in the Bank. But it depends which direction WWE wants to go with this. Cody Rhodes, he's the franchise player. He's the quarterback. That's what he calls himself in WWE. He's the new face of the company. It's no longer John Cena. It's no longer Roman Reigns. It's Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is front and center. And you feel like if there's going to be a person to end John Cena's record-breaking 17th World Championship reign and maybe end his retirement run in WWE, you feel like it's going to be Cody Rhodes. It's set up to even further elevate the American Nightmare, pass the torch to Cody Rhodes as the next guy in WWE, even though he already is. But this is where a feud with Ron Killings could get really interesting, or certainly a match of Ron Killings could get interesting too, because you could have a situation whereby Killings can say, look, I didn't have a job for 7 days. And the crowd were chanting, we want truth. It was the crowd that brought me back. It wasn't you. It wasn't you as the leader of the company. It wasn't you as the former EVP, now quarterback. You love these acronyms that decided to bring me back. No, it was those people, because you can't fabricate that. You can come out and you can say your lines and you can do your promos and you can be the company guy and appear on all the news programs or whatever, but that connection, that's as real as it gets. And they brought me back, not you. And as much as those in the back may want it to be you, to be the one who dethrones John Cena and ends John Cena's WWE career and retires John Cena or what have you, or brings back the hustle, loyalty, and respect, brings back the old Super Cena, it's not going to be you, it's going to be me. And maybe Cody Rhodes and Ron Killings have a match to decide who's going to face Cena for the undisputed WWE Championship. Maybe that's the final of the King of the Ring tournament for a match at SummerSlam. Like I said, I think that there have been these reports and rumors suggesting that maybe Triple H is a bit upset with the WWE fans for hijacking creative, but given the fact that WWE here have caved in to what WWE fans want, and this wasn't part of the plan was initially to not renew Ron Killings' contract and he was going to ride off into the sunset. They've now brought him back and he's involved in a feud with John Cena. Now, I don't know if the plan for Night of Champions originally was for Cody Rhodes to face John Cena or if that was always the plan for SummerSlam, but it feels like the plans are now in a state of flux in a way that WWE storylines haven't been probably since Cody Rhodes and WrestleMania 40 and The Rock and Roman Reigns and everything that happened there. Once again, it feels like plans are changing. And if plans are changing, it may just come down to a popularity contest between Rhodes and Killings. And maybe that's going to be the person to end John Cena's record-breaking 17th reign. And if that is the case, who is it going to be? So a match between the two could be a decider here as to who goes on to face Big Match John for the WWE Championship at a later date. So there you go, guys. There are 5 names that could possibly be facing the new Ron Killings, not R-Truth, Ron Killings in WWE after he returned at Money in the Bank. What are your thoughts on some of those names? Which ones are more likely than others? Let me know your thoughts or reaction to all of them in the comment section below. Who else would you like to see Ron Killings face off against? What's your whole opinion on how this has played out? What do you think are the plans moving forward? Just how well is Killings going to be booked in this new run with the company? Let me know your thoughts or reactions to everything in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button for all of these countdown videos. Also, remember, you can subscribe there. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner. We're at 22,314 subscribers as we get closer and closer to 25k. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And you can scan that QR code on the sidebar right there and join the WN365 roster. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content. I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.